Here we go. Welcome back, comrades. This is Gaming with Austin. And today, we are on episode 54 of Season 2 of the Utopian Community series. What if it... What I'm gonna do this episode... We're gonna focus on... making this... I'm doing this to make it a little easier. Another time, another praise. And the reason humans are greedy, and tend to be kind of greedy at times, is that it's for the same reason why animals tend to be greedy. For the same reason why some animals tend to be kind of greedy at times too. Like, if you take your cat away from their mother before their mother teaches them how to hunt, they have no other choice but to teach themselves how to hunt. They have no other choice. Because it's all about survival. For cats, hunting's all about survival. They don't have a choice. Like, even if your cat's torn from their mother, they're still gonna teach themselves how to hunt. They are still going to teach you how to hunt. They're still going to teach them... If they can't rely on their mother to teach them how to hunt, they have no other choice but to teach themselves how to hunt. And in the fascist country, when it goes to planned obsolescence, we have a choice whether or not to do it. In the fascist country, they would take control, they would take control of the company's shares to ensure they have the most power over the company. The fascist regime would order those companies to instigate planned obsolescence.
Was groundbreaking director Alfred Hitchcock discussing the power of the montage to influence
the reason they would order planned obsolescence, how they do it, they order them to do it. Their way of doing it involves making it hard to crack open a device. For the fascist regime's way of doing it, not only they would make it a lot harder, but they would also make it illegal to do it. When you're caught cracking it open, it would trigger an alarm. They'd force planned... the fascist regime would order the companies to force planned obsolescence on their products by ordering them to not repair products that break, but also like the fascist regime would also abolish warranties too. Meaning if it breaks, you'd have to buy a new one. They'd order printer ink to be single-use only, to where it can only be used on a single piece of paper. And all their profits from that planned obsolescence would be used to contribute to the perpetual war that a war that they would perpetuate. They'd perpetuate a war similar to how the English Socialist Party in 1984 would do it. Those profits would be used, like, the economy would be the means of production would be undertaken. They're not just going to do it for profit, but, like, the dominant reasons they would do it would be profit and nation building. Not to call Fox News fake news, personally.
Like most people, you have probably long suspected that the big six media giants that control traditional news, or the new generation of digital... Who'd be the giant that would control all the news? The fascist regime will. The fascist regime would be... How they maximize profits? By... They'd be shareholders. Instead of being shareholders, like most of us want to be, they'd be shareholders. They'd buy shares, then not sell them. They'd also invest in stocks too. Instead of being regular shareholders, the fascist regime would be a shareholder to align with their capitalist fascist ideology. In 2005, the state of Florida introduced a controversial stand your ground law, permitting people to use lethal force against an attacker, even if it would be possible to safely retreat from the situation without violence. Reuters published the following chart showing the number of gun deaths in Florida over time. Wow, you may remark, gun deaths dropped drastically following the Stand Your Ground law of 2005. Wrong. Notice the y-axis has been inverted so that the zero is at the top. Ergo, as the line graph flows down the charts, the number of gun
Like,
deaths
the fascist regime would claim to be democratic, but really, there wouldn't be any sign of democracy
is to expect the progression
at all.
to invariably appear on an XY-axis chart.
People would still have the right to vote, but they would have no
Less. We also expect
who they would vote for.
left of the chart. So then, at first glance, it would appear that following the 2005 statute, Florida gun deaths drops to almost zero. Now that would be impressive. Another trick is truncating the y-axis. The news loves to use this tactic with crime statistics to make them sound more rapturously apocalyptic. How many times have you read or heard news similar to this? Murder rates of 100% on last year. What they often fail to report...
One thing, most of the murders that happen in the fascist country would actually be committed by the government and blamed on people. The government would be the ones responsible for the murders, yet they would blame it on normal law-abiding citizens.
Crime rates are usually extremely low to begin with, except in a few rare places in the world. So, 2 murders in even a small city of, say, 200,000 people is not a statistic to give you cause to organise a sign-writing party with your belligerent blue-haired buddies. So, when you're shown a chart such as this, you would be forgiven for thinking that the interest rate shot up drastically between 2008 and 2012. If this were true, then we would all be donating our like they'd not only would they make it a lot harder for people to fix their own products, but of those who do, those who are caught doing it, if they succeed in doing it, would be sent to a concentration camp. The reason they order planned obsolescence to be policies to be taken to the extreme, like solder every CPUs to every motherboard to ensure no one can upgrade. They do it to ensure that no one would be able to upgrade their computer. What would be even worse is that once the computers have been built, like CPU, not only that, the RAM would be soldered on too. The hard drives would be beaten to... Like, they'd abolish solid-state drives. Because the fascist government would also control the power companies, too, to churn out as much profit as possible. The problem, one thing that's going to happen is that the electric bill would explode on everybody. The only people allowed to have computers with solid-state drives would be the government elites. Like, they'd be using slavery as a way to churn out profits, too. And if you're wondering what the noise in the background is, I am watching a video by 32. Like, his British accent is so strong that sounds like the meaning of life. From the Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy. The state-run media, they claim it for it to be the most reliable news source ever in the world, but really, it'd be the opposite. How will they spread their agenda? Like, to prepare for war? They'd be spreading fake news to other countries. One thing people would be forced to believe in is that they'd be forced to believe that the Earth is flat. And scientific evidence to prove that the Earth is round would be suppressed. And the scientists would get killed. Like, they'd stage the murders that would happen in the fascist country, they'd stage them just to give people the illusion that the murder rate is high, but in fact the government is responsible for the murder. Like, they do it to those who learn of the conspiracy that the government's killing people for no reason, like their own people for no reason whatsoever. One thing they would do, the regime would do, is they'd mock another tribal group, commit the murder, blame it on the tribal group they mocked. They do it as a way to stay in power. they'd be extremely anti-theistic too. Not only people would be forced to believe the Earth is flat, but also they'd be forced to believe that a man landed on the sun, like what North Koreans believe. It's not possible to debunk the North Korean so-called truth of a man landing on the sun. The sun is too hot for life to survive on the surface. Truth debunked. Like, the so-called truth of a man landing on the sun, it's not possible that the man landed on the sun because the sun, for one, the sun has no solid surface. The sun is a fiery ball of plasma. A gigantic fireball of plasma. Entirely made of plasma. The reason, like, they'd claim that people wouldn't be allowed to leave the border to protect them, but really, they wouldn't be allowed to leave the border because they're trying to brainwash them into the fascist ideology. The punishment for crossing the border to outside, they'd believe that not only they'd believe in a flat Earth scenario, but they'd also believe that vaccines cause autism too, which is also not true. That vaccines can cause Alzheimer's as well. That vaccines are something created by the far left in the fascist country. Like, they'd be extremely anti-vaccine. They'd lead the anti-vaccination movement too. They'd strongly believe that the only thing that can treat conditions is a visit by a leader, the leader. Truth is, faith healing, like, it would be their version of faith healing. People would be led to believe that the dictator would be a healer of illness. In fact, faith healing does not work at all. Yet parents still do it sometimes, even though it's not. Even though it has no effect. In fact, I'd consider that manslaughter. Or attempted manslaughter. The controversy of faith healing is why I don't want to go back to any religion whatsoever. Why criticize the Abrahamic religions? For Judaism and Christianity, the Ten Commandments tend to be kind of biased. But for Islam, they're trying to control the world. They're trying to impose Sharia law around the world. One thing all those religions have in common is that they force people not to commit adultery. It's actually natural for people to commit adultery. Adultery is one of the good things about human nature. Because there are people out there that are naturally polygamous. It should be the norm to be polygamous, meaning having to have multiple sexual partners. Lions do it all the time. Other animals do it too. People would be led to believe that child molestation will help with proliferating the ethnic majority even farther. How they make the ethnic composition entirely white in the fascist country. One method they would do is genocide and slavery. How they claim that poverty is non-existent is a thing of a past by singling out certain ethnic groups, to where, like, they'd be extremely ethnocentristic. Like, they'd be ultra-nationalist. Like, they would lie about their national team winning the Olympics, when in fact they'd be down to the bottom position, at the lowest position. Like, over 200 countries, like they'd claim to be in first place, but in fact they'd be in the very last place. They'd warp their views. Like, they'd be spreading fake news. Some fake news are actually pretty funny. Like, when the Barnum and Bailey Circus closed, they spread fake news about clowns getting released into the woods. That's actually pretty hilarious. That's actually pretty funny. That is actually a hilarious example of fake news. That's a hilarious example of it. When Barnum and Bailey Circus closed, one news source believed that the clowns are going to get released into the woods. With the fascist regime, they'd call the deaths from Hurricane Maria, all of them, fake news. Like, the fascist regime would call them fake news. They'd even call the Holocaust fake news, believing that it never happened, when in fact the Holocaust really did happen. The death toll of the Holocaust is about 50 million. The death toll of the Holocaust is a lot more than what you're led to believe in school. 50 million people died in the hands of Adolf Hitler. Which is pretty sad. Not only that, the news source of the fascist country will have claimed to have found a cure for CJD. That cure would be, they'd be led to believe that they found a cure for fatal insomnia by using sleeping pills. When in fact, sleeping pills only make it worse. Because your thalamus controls your sleep schedule. Hormones can make it out of sync. You know, it's biologically unnatural to put your teen to sleep very early in the evening. Like, to wake them up early. It's unnatural for them to be sleeping earlier in the evening. It's unnatural for them to sleep in the evening. Like, early in the evening. Because testosterone is a hormone responsible for fucking with your sleep schedule. Most teens tend to go to bed, stay up very late regardless of discipline. It doesn't matter how disciplined your teenager is, your teenage child is, they're still gonna stay up late even if you tell them to go to bed early multiple times. It doesn't matter. Because you're forcing them to go to bed unnaturally early. It's unnatural for them to go to bed early. Their news source would lead people to believe that children at school who sleep very little tend to perform quite well. The fact is that it's completely fake. It's completely false. Children need a lot of sleep. They need a lot of sleep because they are still growing. They are still growing. They lead people to believe that starving your child into submission can get them to stop eating sugar. Truth is, it'd be completely false. They'd be telling all sorts of big lies as a way to keep people in line with the fascist ideology. Capitalist fascist ideology. Like, their view on Western democracy, and even Swiss democracy, is that they'd claim that people are bad at making decisions. We're able to make our own decisions, regardless. They'd even blame the HIV epidemic on, like, they'd see animals as commodities. All animals. They'd even blame the world hunger on vegans too. They'd blame world hunger on vegans too. And those who are omnivores as well. And that they should be viewed as a food source for them. Now, veganism, they'd be led to believe that veganism will lead to complete malnutrition. That they'd be led to believe that humans need a lot of protein. The truth is, we need protein, but not too much. Because too much protein is bad for your kidneys. That the only way to cure malnutrition is, they'd be led to believe that the only way to cure malnutrition is to feed them raw meat. It's only true for cats. But it's not true for humans. This is because the malnutrition brought on by vegan diet, it only applies to cats. Because humans can get away with a vegan diet. Cats can't. Cats cannot go vegan. We humans have a choice whether or not to go vegan. Cats don't have that choice. Dogs can get away with the vegan diet, but their owners have to be careful. I mean, very careful. Vegan and cat food should never be used in the same sentence, because I get that they might have the amino acids that the cat needs, but the cats cannot digest it. Their gut is too short for that. Like, their intestines are too short. Like, they cannot digest soy. They'd also claim that starving people to death would be the only way to reduce the crime rate, when in fact it will cause a higher crime rate, because when people don't get enough food, they would lash out, or starve when people try to starve their enemies into submission, they would try to fight back. Anyways, this is it for this video. Don't forget to leave a like if you like this video. Dislike if you dislike this video. Subscribe for more. Share this with your comrades on social media. Support me on Patreon. As always, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. And peace out.